Disclaimer, I'm Lindsay and I make videos about whatever I want, and I can't stop you from leaving comments saying whatever you want, but I do reserve the right to screen grab and respond if you say anything that truly inspires me. Pause and read for more details. Today's topic is AI and how I use it, and how you can't stop me. I hope you're enjoying my Fallout New Vegas Mr. House themed VTuber situation I've got going on right now. I made it for my Fallout channel because I haven't gotten around to making one for this channel yet. Too much analysis paralysis on that, which we'll actually get to in this video. A lot of people hate AI. I hear about it all the time. And they have legitimate arguments, which we'll unpack as we go. But the popularity of anti-AI sentiments is making a lot of people give themselves permission to make snarky remarks to complete strangers without knowing anything about their side of the story. Now, I get the desire to make the bad thing socially unacceptable, but I also think it should be socially unacceptable for us to boldly, openly make judgmental remarks despite having huge gaps in our information about their reasoning and circumstances. Now, it's one thing to publicly shame someone for being hostile or using racial slurs because that can be assessed at a superficial level. But AI is not only a complicated issue, but a wildly novel one. No one knows what the fuck they're talking about, so there's no reason for any Joe Blow internet commenter to act like an expert because they watched Adam Conover videos. Make no mistake, I'm not even gonna pretend that this video is anything close to an objective, unbiased, top-down assessment of the AI crisis. I am fully unambiguously declaring this video is not that. In fact, I'm getting to the point that on the internet I'm starting to resent how it's like we're not even allowed to speak about an issue unless we can somehow verify that our perspective applies to everyone else on Earth as well, lest we come off as self-centered, right? Well, you know what? I think it's more self-centered to hold my subjective perspective responsible for objective, universal awareness. This is a personal, biased take. File it under anecdotal. The only thing I want you to take from this video objectively is that my subjective experience exists. We're gonna hit a wide range of topics here. AI for accessibility, for neurodivergent people with unusual aptitudes, the impact it's had on me as an independent creative, the way that AI work can still be legitimate creative work. But most of all, I want to focus on debunking the assumptions people make about my use of AI. Assumption 1, we're not doing any actual artistic work. Correction, yeah I am. I grew up in a family of digital creatives. Early in my youth, the main illustrator of our family put down the oil paints and paintbrushes and started doing all their work digitally, primarily in Photoshop. So this was like the late 90s, early 2000s, so pop quiz. How often do you think this family member of mine was accused of not being a real artist? How many times did I have to explain to people, like, no, when you open up Photoshop, like, there's a paintbrush tool, and like, no, he's actually painting it, guys. He's actually painting it. Like, anybody out there, if you happen to be one of those people who've posted one of these snarky comments, have you ever actually, like, looked at the Leonardo app and saw, like, how many different knobs and switches there are? Like, I think a lot of people, when they see an image and they hear that it was generated with AI, they make the assumption that somebody just typed a prompt and then that image happened and that's it. In my experience, what it's a lot more like is I have an image in my head that I want to create that has a really specific function or purpose that has to be presented in a really specific way. And then there's a lot of experimentation with a lot of different tools, different platforms, different wordings and prompts, going back and forth with ChatGPT to workshop prompts. Like, it might take 100 images to generate that one image. Now, that's obviously less work than doing a painting, but you can't say it's no work. It's a lot more work than just typing a prompt and rolling the dice. And that's not the only thing that you do when you're making AI work. There's also things like content references, elements, character references. There's a lot of moving images from tool to experiment with getting different results. And also, it is very, very, very rare that I'm going to end up with an AI-generated image and do absolutely no editing on it afterwards. There are always little hallucinations and things that didn't quite fit the vision. Now, we're probably on the same page that robots can't make art, but there appears to often be a kind of infantile understanding of the line between a robot did it and a human did it. Like, if I use a washing machine, I still have to do my laundry. Similarly, an artistic decision is being made the second a human being is typing a prompt. It's a much smaller artistic decision, but in most cases, the AI isn't randomly spitting images at people. But I cannot help myself. I cannot address the topic of disregarding AI as not really art without talking about this Mother's Basement video and the Scamboli Review's response to it. Okay, here's what happened. I guess this is about a year old now. This YouTuber Mother's Basement, I guess his name is Jeff, made a video in response to Corridor Digital's AI-generated anime. And he completely epitomized the exact extreme, narrow-minded, judgmental kind of stuff that I'm talking about. And then Scamboli Reviews, you should watch the entire video that Scamboli Reviews did, because it's just excellent. He's probably a lot more articulate than I am, but in particular, I want to point out what he said here. He lists all the work that Corridor Digital put into the film alongside the AI, and it is an extensive list. And then he says,
"If you don't think a convergence of all these skills is art, then I don't value your opinion on this topic."
What a mic drop. Nailed it. That is the confidence that I want to have in my heart with this topic, or with a lot of different topics, actually. In these socially conscious spaces, we have felt voiceless for so long. And so the last thing that we ever want to do is deny a voice to somebody else. We really want to have this culture where everyone's point of view matters, where everyone can contribute to the conversation. But just because everybody deserves a place in the world doesn't mean that everybody deserves a place in my brain. If anybody wants to talk me out of using AI, they have to factor in the truth of my experience with AI and the real work I'm really doing, and if they can't do that, then I don't value their opinion. It feels good. Thank you for that, Scamboli Reviews. Assumption number 2. We aren't educated on the issues. Correction, I am. I mean, as much as could be expected. And it's such a weird thing to frame to prove to you that I know stuff, because like I said, this isn't a research video. I'm just gonna start talking, okay? And we're just gonna see what happens. The point is, yeah, I still use AI even though I know about a lot of problems, such as how freaking irresponsible these companies are. Google and other tech companies just squeezing AI into everything, despite knowing about notable failures, because of the constant pressure to compete with each other. Like, once one company is using an AI thing, then like everyone has to, whether they're ready or not, or else they can't compete. So the public really isn't ready to cognitively process what they're looking at. Like, it's one thing if we're talking about ChatGPT, but when we're talking about like AI-powered search engines, how is the average consumer supposed to know to fact check a search engine? They'd probably use the search engine to fact check. None of these companies are going to stop doing anything that makes them money unless it's mandated in some way. And it's not going to get mandated because the technology is too new to have any really conclusive research, so these companies can get by on plausible deniability pretty much indefinitely because whoever has the gold makes the rules. Not to mention all the other stupid stuff they're doing, like the freaking Scarlett Johansson voice thing. And then there's the environmental impact. Every time we're generating these images, there's some graphics card somewhere chugging away, which takes vast amounts of energy. So we got carbon footprints, we've got habitat destruction, mining for rare earth metals and other materials, and we got lots of e-waste. It's probably going to be a long time before we get the regulations that we truly need, because until those regulations exist, companies are going to sway public policy in their favor. And these regulations, they not only have to deal with the stuff everybody knows about, like nudity, fraud, intellectual property, but there's some creepy, less obvious stuff like culture control. I was obsessed with this in regards to social media after The Social Dilemma came out, but AI makes the whole situation even creepier. It's a misinformation powder kegger that is just continually exploding. The opportunities for creative dishonesty are truly off the charts. I mean, is every artist's portfolio going to need a certificate of authenticity now? Are they going to have to save their iPad recordings of when they actually did the art to prove they actually did? I would. And I don't know how many of you like to look at porn on Reddit. That's a smooth segue. But it's really common for girls to like hold up cards that say like, "This is my only real account," like written on a piece of paper. Yeah, that's meaningless now. Okay, I made up an imaginary influencer named Alara. At the time of this recording, I haven't actually posted anything to Alara's account. It's kind of hard to explain why, but I've made hundreds and hundreds of pictures of her. But just for the hell of it, I made one of those, like, account verification card pictures just to see if I could of this woman that doesn't exist. And ta-da! But yeah, the erosion of trust in content verification because of AI's ability to generate realistic fake content. It's a thing. And I guess I already talked about this a little bit, the social impact, right? I was recently introduced to the term dead internet. It's related to this school of thought of how just there's so many bots and there's so much junk being produced on the internet, and then junk teaching other junk to make more junk. We have a lot of poor, desperate people right now who need their piece of the pie, and if AI gives them a chance to make content that they can monetize quickly, people are going to do whatever they have to. And there are a lot of people who are afraid that the airwaves are going to be filled with so much junk that our brains are going to be filled with junk and all we're going to produce is junk. But y'all, I think that we've been there for like 20 years already. Whoops. Believe it or not, I've actually historically been a nerd about humane technology. Like I said, after The Social Dilemma came out, I actually applied for a job at the Center for Humane Technology. I helped try to start a nonprofit to make a free app with no advertising. It's still sort of a dream project of mine. So in a nutshell, yes, I'm aware of the problems. But I didn't really mention the problem that I'm sure my audience in particular wants me to talk about. And that's gonna bring us to assumption number 3. And that's that we don't care or understand the way that AI is affecting independent artists. Oh, does this one make me ever so mad? Tech like this should be freeing people from jobs. But instead, they're devaluing everybody's jobs. These AI technologies are able to use people's work without permission or compensation, basically on a technicality, because copyright law just didn't see this one coming, I guess. And a great deal of the people watching this video either are artists themselves or have friends that are artists who have taken a hit to their income because clients are now using AI instead of hiring them. That in addition to the insult of the fact that these AI companies are able to do that because they stole their work, it is a shit situation for artists. The reason why it especially irks me when people assume that I don't understand or care about artists is because I have been an independent freelance creative for most of my career. Things that I used to get paid for are absolutely getting replaced with AI. Are you kidding me? And like I already said, most of my family freelance creatives as well. I may not be an illustrator, but as I covered earlier, I have a family member who is. This is the part where I'd planned to tell you all a personal family story that would have strongly backed up the claim that I know how hard it is for artists. But, I have decided, no, I'm not gonna do that. No. Yeah, I know nobody asked me to tell this story to begin with, but I want to take this opportunity to say I don't think people should have to tell personal stories that might embarrass their families publicly to earn an AI permission slip. Maybe it's the responsibility of the audience to not assume that people don't understand the plight of artists just because they used AI. Why is the burden of proof on me? I think it should be the burden of other people to be less judgmental. But I can tell you what the big life lesson was after that story I'm not gonna tell you, is that artists were fucked already. AI technology isn't nearly as big a problem as the chemical reaction between that technology and capitalism. Why are people doing all this dishonest shit? Because capitalism incentivizes them to. And I know a lot of people don't like blaming capitalism because it's like, well, what are we gonna do about it? It just feels like whining. But I think that we should all be consciously reminding ourselves and each other when capitalism is the bad guy. If whiners like me don't keep whining about capitalism, then we can just slave away throughout the rest of human history, living in a hell of competition when we could be living in a heaven of cooperation. Every single company, every single business, anywhere that we look for jobs, for resources, is incentivized to find ways not to pay us. Knowing that, and while saying that I'm not participating in these systems is asinine, scale, proportion, hell, strategize. I am not a practical target for militant AI social justice. I never had money to pay a photographer or an illustrator to begin with, I promise. And I have never in my life been responsible for the budget of a studio or a production company. I have never once signed off on using AI instead of using an actual freelancer. I'm not your guy. And last but not least, assumption number 4. No one has to use AI. Correction? I do. This is the section I've been stressing out about the most. As a general rule, neurodivergent people, we don't like having to explain to people the things our brain doesn't do, because we don't expect people to believe us. And I am literally walking into enemy territory. I am 100% anticipating that the people watching this video do not believe it's possible for a person to have neurodivergent needs that require them to make overachieving AI-generated artwork to promote their classes. But like I said in the disclaimer at the beginning, I am just humbly asking y'all to give me the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I think I've done a pretty good job up to this point selling that I am educated on the issue. So if I'm still using it, there's gotta be a reason for that, right? Open your mind, and maybe even, open your heart a little bit, because I'm about to explain it. I mean, we can start off on a lighter note, like how I'm a natural remixer. It feels so silly to me now, but I've always been a lot more interested in fan fiction and fan works than making a new original thing. But there was so much pressure on me to make something original because until it was original, I couldn't sell it. And if I couldn't sell it, it was a waste of time. So I would try to push away all these fan fiction ideas and try so hard to come up with something completely original. But now it's just so obvious to me that that's just not what I'm interested in doing. Like, the way my creativity works is I see an existing thing and then I think about all the things that I want to add to it and change about it. I don't really want to start with a blank canvas. And once again, if you take your mind out of capitalism, why can't I be that way? Like, if I cut out a bunch of magazine clippings and I put those together and made a collage, sure, I didn't take the pictures myself, but I didn't waste my time. I didn't do nothing. I think a person who predominantly spends their time making remixes is contributing enough to human society to deserve a place to live and food. But alas, I have to figure out how to fit into capitalism. Y'all, the stress I would put on myself to just try to make something new. Okay, one time I wrote a really successful fanfiction story that was like 60 chapters long. I printed it on paper. It ended up being 3 books. But it was a point of shame for me because I was like, why am I not capable of writing this much if it's original? What's the point of that story? Well, what I understand now that I didn't understand then is my brain is really wired for what I guess you could call autonomous collaboration or self-directed. Basically, all I want to do is collaborate with people without having to talk to them, because I need to work on things in my order, on my schedule. I can't depend on people to meet deadlines. I can't worry about things like their feelings. It's not that I don't care about people's feelings. In fact, the problem is most often that I care a lot about people's feelings. So whenever they get involved, they tend to take up all the space. I have no interest in screwing people over. In fact, I get a lot of joy out of crediting people. When I was doing Lindsay's Fallout films, I used a lot of mods created by other people, and I kept really diligent records of everybody whose work I was using. In fact, I sent them all messages, bringing what I was doing to their attention. And last I checked, to this day, a pretty well-known character replacer Fallout 4 mod is using one of my videos in their listing, which is so cool! Video games create an excellent playground for people like me. I freaking love making things out of video games. Characters, the world, the scenery, it's all already there. And capitalism kind of gave up on trying to stop us from making stuff out of games, didn't it? Ha 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 ha. There's some alternative universe somewhere where AI was never invented, and I tried to figure out how to make all my autism video assets in Cyberpunk 2077. But y'all, I would have a lot of problems in that universe. Problems that I don't have now. Not anymore. Problems like getting lost every morning on the way to my toothbrush in the 12-part film franchise that my brain won't stop inventing. This is a very real problem that I went to ADHD coach Sheila for advice on how to solve. Basically, I have to take my medication an hour before I expect myself to actually do anything. ChatGPT has not only helped me untangle my brain on numerous occasions, but it also helped me create a daily routine. The point is, it's a reality for some people that their brain is generating so many ideas so quickly that it impairs their ability to function. Plus, I've had anything resembling self-trust traumatized right the hell out of me. That means I have to take that overwhelming onslaught of ideas and analyze them and weigh them against each other and prioritize. A great way to describe my ADHD experience is my brain is in a constant state of game over in Tetris. The pieces are coming down way too fast for me to possibly line them up, and there is a torrential downpour of pieces. Cute metaphors aside, it is physically impossible for me to process my thoughts as quickly as I think them. A lot of it is just noise. Like, imagine being on, like, a subway, and it's flying through a tunnel, and the inside of that tunnel has posters on the walls. But you can't process what's on the posters, the train's going by too fast. It's just a blur, right? In fact, you might not even notice there are posters until the train slows down. The combination of my medication with using a creative tool as fast as ChatGPT, it created this sort of cognitive experience where the train slowed down and I could finally see the posters. It's been crazy. Like, there are times when I probably thought I wasn't thinking about anything, when the truth was I was thinking about things so fast, my own brain couldn't make sense of them. If you imagine that those posters are like ideas and medication slows the train down, you can think of generative AI as like a lasso I can use to grab onto the ideas before they fly away. Grab an idea, the autism can file it, then I can grab another idea, and the autism can file that, and the autism is struggling to keep up. But for the first time, basically in my life, a rhythm feels feasible. And wisdom comes from contrast, so now that I see what it takes to get that rhythm, it kind of sends a chill down my spine. How really in shit I was before, to be honest. a lot of people might be under the impression that, I was probably fine and I'd have a different job and I'd have a different life and figure it out if I didn't have access to AI. But the truth is, I've been a dysfunctional mess for years. Let's be real.
Is that Lindsay's car? It was Lindsay's car.
I have been trying like hell to be financially independent and failing miserably at doing so for as long as I can remember. And y'all, I even got a master's degree in entertainment business. I've tried really hard to try to figure out how to make a living. Why do you think I hate capitalism so much? Because I worshipped it and it fucked me. Now you may be thinking, come on now, Lindsay. But do you really need to be this ridiculous overachiever with the AI social media posts? Did you really need this fully fleshed out watercolor painting of Allie the elastic dolphin and Otto the autistic owl? Fair, but I said I could explain, so that's what I'm gonna do. So let's say I had no AI. I would have dropped the idea immediately. I would have seen it as unfeasible. I'm not gonna put my autism through the process of shopping for an artist and exchanging emails and seeing if it's a good fit, especially because I don't really have much of a budget. So then that leaves stock. What are the chances that I'm gonna find a collection of stock images of a dolphin and an owl in a complementary art style, in enough poses and with enough facial expressions to tell the stories I want to tell? Oh yeah, and the owl character is supposed to be wearing a spherical diving helmet. It's a part of the whole metaphor of the autistic character needing more accommodations to survive in the holistic character's world. Oh yeah, and now when I'm making the actual graphics, I'm gonna have to Photoshop that diving helmet on that owl every single time. So for all of those reasons, I would just drop the concept altogether and try to think of something else to do, which is gonna be frustrating and confusing because my brain had already decided what it wanted to do. It wanted to see Allie the dolphin and Otto the autistic owl. And so anything that's not that is not gonna feel like the right answer, so I'm gonna have a really hard time picking a right answer. And that's when the autistic perfectionism comes in. Now I'm overanalyzing every possible option, trying to find something that makes something in my brain go click. And you know what happens the overwhelming majority of the time? I end up not making anything at all. I fall off the map, I disappear from TikTok and YouTube, and I curl up into a pile of ADHD self-pity wondering why I never get anything done. You guessed it, this is why my VTuber isn't done. I could ideate using AI, but it's actually really difficult to try to make a consistent character with this many poses using AI alone. So I'm out here drawing it like the filthy proletariat, nitpicking every little detail, so it's, taking forever. I gotta cut to this clip of Trevor Noah. This is the first time I've ever seen anyone, much less a celebrity this famous, talk about ADHD in the way that I really feel like it needs to be talked about more often.
People think, and so did I when I was young, that ADHD is, this kid can't pay attention, when in fact what it means is you are unable to control what you pay attention to. You are paying more attention than most people, but to the wrong thing. My depression is created by a severe level of ADHD. If I'm not careful in how I sleep, how I eat, how I manage my routine, I can become overwhelmed and it can just feel like the whole world is just too heavy to bear.
Well, clearly Trevor Noah knows what a Lindsay morning is like. So going back to our subway tunnel metaphor, in that case, Allie the dolphin and Otto the owl would have been one of those ideas that I had to let fly by. But AI gives me that magic lasso. When I had the idea for Allie and Otto, I could just make Allie and Otto right then. I could start experimenting and testing out how consistent I could get the characters. I could start building this library of these characters, doing different things. Every time I have an idea and I can just make it, then I can just move on to the next idea. And there's not that same risk of getting lost in the tangles of overanalyzing and decision fatigue. Also, something about the ADHD experience that I know doesn't sound like it makes any sense to anybody who's not ADHD, but whether or not something is easy definitely has an impact on whether or not we're going to be able to do something, but not nearly as much as whether or not something is interesting. Our culture teaches us that if you're not willing to do things that you find boring, that's a character flaw. That's something that you're going to have to get over in order to be a decent person that people respect, because as an adult, sometimes we have to do boring things. Yeah, that messaging makes ADHDers hate themselves because dopamine is involved. A chemical is involved in whether or not we have the drive to do something. So expecting us to do something that we don't find in any way interesting is like expecting a car to drive without gasoline. I mean, straight up, it is cruel and unfair to judge an ADHDer's character based on this criteria. For some ADHDers, we need to make our day-to-day tasks easier, but some of us have to make our day-to-day tasks more interesting. So what other people might see in my posts as overachieving, that's the level of intensity I have to bring to my work in order to feel motivated to do it at all. And the old expression my stepdad used to say, the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the track record of my life, AI became available to me and all of a sudden I could start doing stuff. We will continue to see in the coming weeks, videos are getting posted, posts are getting scheduled. I couldn't keep up with my brain before and now I can. So I'm not gonna quit using it. I'm gonna take the karma hit on this one. Wrap up time. I'm not dense enough to say that I'm innocent here. I think it's annoying when people are so caught up in their individual responsibilities that they deny the existence of their collective responsibilities. In other words, I understand that my making this choice, albeit indirectly, does affect you. I recognize that I'm a participant in a system, and I can whine about that system all day, but I'm still a participant in it. If anything, I hope you walk away from this video understanding that I didn't make that decision lightly. I'm autistic. I find it very cognitively uncomfortable to be living out of sync with my values. But with stuff like this, I've just learned to make adjustments to my values to make room for the concept of capacity. It is not a reasonable expectation for me to set for myself or for you to set for yourself or for me or for anybody else to strive for ethical perfection in a world where we are inextricably bound to freaking huge, infinitely complex systems that interconnect to a bazillion other people. We can be conscious consumers. We can be educated voters. We can do our best, but we are gonna let things slip through the cracks. I don't just use AI, you know what? I also order things from Amazon. I order food from Grubhub. I buy a lot of Powerade, and that's using a lot of bottles. Not to mention giving money to Coca-Cola. Most of us can't get through a day without doing something morally abhorrent if we investigated it deep enough. I think we all need to be a little bit gentler with ourselves and each other about this sort of thing. Dear Lord, we are all doing our best in a shit show. I mean, if any of y'all are ADHD, you know what it's like. I mean, I have been operating at max capacity my entire life, only to have every kind of person, neurotypical, autistic, you name it, insist that I'm not working hard enough. And I'm putting my foot down. I'm working hard enough. God damn it. And from now on, if anyone out there thinks I'm not working hard enough, like my guy Scomboli Reviews said, I do not value their opinion. To coincidentally go back to Trevor Noah, in his book Born a Crime, he tells a story about selling bootlegged CDs as a teenager. He grew up in a tough situation where survival and making ends meet were top priority, and in the book he explains that for many people in similar situations, the concept of legality and being an upright citizen becomes a distant concern compared to immediate needs like food and shelter. In the video Privilege Ignorance on my Fallout channel, I make a similar point. The character Lucy, who grew up in a sheltered vault, is now on the surface seeing what life is like for people in the apocalypse who didn't have her privilege. When she sees this post-apocalyptic trader selling Vault-Tec merchandise, she politely brings to the shopkeeper's attention that she is selling Vault-Tec's intellectual property illegally. Yeah, the shopkeeper really doesn't care how polite she was about it. Just like I really don't care how polite people are about it when they wag their finger at me about AI. Haha, just got to use this one in the wild. Thank you, Scomboli Reviews. So the answer to the big question, why do I continue to use AI despite knowing how evil it is? For the same reason I use capitalism, despite knowing how evil it is. I can't afford not to. It's really just that simple. I do not have the luxury to be morally uppity about the only shot at survival that I have been given in years. That's why I'm being so chill and nonchalant about the judgment at this point. After this video, I'm putting my self-defense on the issue to bed because the world sucks and I deserve to survive. Call it the yuppie Nuremberg defense. I'll take it. I'm tired. I just want a regulated nervous system. And if you still hate me for using AI, just consider one last thought. So I'm making stuff trying to help ADHD autistic people get used to their brains, right? Well, what if I helped somebody get so comfortable with their own brain that they were emotionally regulated enough to fight the good fight and blast AI into outer space where it belongs? Eh? If you want to fight AI, I get it. There's clearly a lot of reasons to do so. It's not my place to tell you what you should or shouldn't care about or where your values should lie. All I ask is that whatever choices you make, factor in that people like me exist. You can disagree with me, that's fine. Just don't accuse me of lying or exaggerating just because the truth of my life is inconvenient for your agenda. especially when it comes to neurodivergence, because the truth is there are a lot of behaviors that look lazy or entitled or impatient or careless or thoughtless, and the person you're looking at just doesn't have the options that you think they do. At the time of this recording, I need to use AI to survive. And whether or not you believe me when I say that is your business. What's my business is survival. I choose my survival over appeasing the people who I think are unfairly judgmental to begin with. So thank you so much for watching. I release videos every 2 weeks, and now that we're all on the same page that there's gonna be a lot of AI triggers, you're invited to join me. Until next time.